Okay. All right, guys, before I start kicking of setups and technicals, I have a quick word about developing and speaking of where everybody's standing at and what everybody's doing. We all know, whether you read in a book or what do we talk during the program, stages of learning. There are four: the unconscious incompetence, conscious incompetence, conscious competence, and unconscious competence. Usually, when the beginning, anyone starting, you don't know what you don't know, what you really need to focus on. The second stage of any learning process as a skill, you are a conscious incompetence. You actually know what skills you need to learn. And then comes the third stage where you actually eliminate most of what you know and focus on training and perfecting the skill that you're building during the second and first stage. And then comes the fourth stage, which is the unconscious competence, where you execute effortless with your process. Speaking of your risk management, the setups you approach, the setups you approaching whatsoever. And then come the developing, which is out of the learning process, which is the developing as a trader. Most of you guys, and usually during your first 6 to 8 months, you are aiming to get to that stage number four, which is the unconscious competence. You're working hard enough to find the process and do it without problem. So you trust the system, you're taking your winners, you're taking your losses, and you have no problem. You just come, you put in the work, and you leave, and you're not worried or you're not emotionally triggered by any outcome on a short frame. I'm speaking of trade-to-trade basis or day-to-day basis. That's all part of the process. But once you get there, you move on to the developing stage. So right now, in anyone under, let's say, 6 8 months, an average to 1 year, you're still out of the developing process. So some of the information I will talk about now, it's not yet where you stand. You should not aim at that right now, but you should put it in mind. You need to know where you're standing exactly, because once you decide to jump in the stock market or trading in general, you're in the unconscious incompetence. Once you start absorbing the information, learning here and there, YouTube, Google, some training programs, learning values, that's stage number two. And stage number three, where you actually focus on what works and you put in efforts and the effort and dedication to do it right. And then comes doing the same process but effortless, without any problems. Once you get there, in trading especially, it's developing stage. So when I'm speaking development, now we know that not everybody in the development stage, but you know what comes next after stage number four, once you have no problem executing and seeing results in trading. And as long as you can stay in that zone, which is stage number four, that becomes a comfort zone. And that what comes after is, let's say, stage five, which is the development. What is the development in trading? It is one of two, whether it's sizing or the approach. Let's take the approach on the side first. The approach, which is how do you trade, what setups you're looking at, what weekly or monthly tweaks that you add based on your report to improve performance. And that approach will only work with your report and your screen time. Without a screen time, a proper screen time where you have to sit in front of the screen, not just watch it. You're analyzing, you're watching, you're observing, you're taking notes, and that's the screen time. And it's not clicking by itself. This screen time, based on two things, from what we know, is we are looking for values. Where are my values? And the second part is observing the market mechanics of approaching the value. This is all what you need to know. This is all what you need to know about your screen time. All what we're doing all day, all night, we're trying to identify where are my values. You found them, and then you start observing market mechanics, how they approach the value. So what's the market foundation in general? Values. Market will always end up at a value. That will never change. But the dynamic part here that you need to put your screen time in is observing the market mechanics of approaching those values. So that subject to let's say you started trading, now you learn some setup, H3, T2, and some setups. There will always be more setups coming during your trading journey. And two of those I will speak of today. But that's your job. That's actually your job, part from the trading itself, is to observe the mechanics, what have changed, how markets approach values today in the futures market or any other market. And this is the first part of your development. Approach, screen time, how to get a efficient screen time. We all work on identifying values, and I think we all know now methods to approach whether technical values or emotional values. And then your development will be flexible to change, subject to change based on observing the market mechanics approaching the values, which is the setups. Setups are not for me like 100% technical analysis. It's just a way to measure risk. It's a way of risk management. This is not to make you right or wrong. This is to identify a risk on a specific setup you want to make. And the setup is only as good as the risk it provides. So you cannot see or expect a setup to be 100% good or A+ setup. You can expect this setup only to work good if it offers you an entry against your stop loss with what your plan of risk allows you on that day. Coming on the second half of the development, which is sizing. Now we spoke about the approach. Now we're speaking of sizing, and this is let's say this is my personal development right now, which is sizing. The approach, I know what I want to do. I observe the market effortless every day as a process, a routine, so I don't have problem with that. Now I'm developing as a trader in sizing. So how do I improve or develop my sizing? It's a practice planning, advanced risk management. You have to make sure that you are aware of your risk, how you're going to play your risk on the day. And we all know that plays on both sides, the risk management and the profit management. You can use methods that you learn from me. You can even approach different methods, but you have to use that risk management to dictate what size you should take, like the Excel sheets, the moving average that we draw on Excel sheet performance to identify when I should size, when I shouldn't size, when I should be defensive and lower my size and risk, and all of that, which is the performance moving average, whether on Excel sheet or if you're using a different program. And then you have to have a clear and solid plan identifying your short and long-term goals in trading. Tell me what's your short and long-term goals. I'll tell you where you will end in 2 years with your trading career. Because if that is not planned, you are shooting randomly in a war, just shooting right and left. You will be lucky if you get one of them right. So you have to have this planned, short and long term. Speaking of sizing, I mean, so a basic process, for example, it's going to be different from a person to another. Depends on how long so far you spend in your trading. But for example, you put a rule. Now I'm trading 1-2 contracts. How do I step to 3 contracts? Okay, now I have a process. I will not step into 3 contracts unless I build a cushion X amount for the day. I cover my risk, and I plan to squeeze that 3rd contract in a small trades for me to get just comfortable. It's not about the money. It's about the confidence, because sizing is all about psychology. It's all about psychology. Most of the trades I'm taking and trying to push size in, I have to make sure that I have built the cushion. I put myself in the mindset that I can take size. I have no regrets. I know what's the outcome, and it is part of the process. So you have to identify how you're going to do it short term and long term. Plan written on paper, and day by day your goal is to approach this plan. So between approach and sizing, there is a lot of work to do. You have to spot where you're standing during your trading career and then push out of that. Because basically you cannot have future goals unless you have a past performance. You have a past performance, you identify weaknesses and strength in trading. So what do I see about this development process? It usually starts with the performance. You have to perform first. So you cannot judge your first couple of months performance as something that did well or bad. No, that performance has to build up a report so you can extract the information and move on out of that. It starts with the performance first, and then you extract the data, and then you study the data, weaknesses and strength, and then you come to adjust your process, and then you perform back again. And this process every day, every week, every month, every year. Performance, you extract data, you study it, you adjust, you perform. This is it is speaking of sizing, and also the approach, which is the technical approach on the trading markets. So speaking of that, you don't have to jump early in your first 6 to 8 months into sizing. That's too early for you. Take me too long, maybe it will take you less time, but it doesn't mean that you have to skip stages. You cannot jump from level 1 to 10 straight ahead. You have to build it up to build a healthy career, because you can do it. Actually, jump, let's say someone who trading 2 contracts immediately jumps in the 5 and 6. You can get a two shots by luck, but the shots that doesn't work in your favor, it will pull you back at least 4 or 5 steps, and you don't want that. You want a slow, steady improvement in your trading. So that's all regarding the development. Now let's jump to the main discussion, which is more of the L patterns and the imbalances. And I hope you guys saw the YouTube video about imbalances, because I'm not going to focus much about the imbalances today. I'll just quick recap, because I rely on that last meeting